More children are falling out of school, and many of them are falling out of school into hazardous jobs, even though general school enrollment figures have gone up across the country. Well, the situation affects the quality of education somewhat in many of those communities in which we notice that a lot more children are involved in work. Well, Joy News' Justice Beidou spent months following the story of child miners who were falling out of school into illegal mining in the Upper East region in a new documentary titled Tender Miners. Please, we bring you excerpts.
Mana embang mana sigi dan karanyo kai ma tume da sigi la bara tan sigi example la sigi manda ma bore kuda ma bore da tana kara ba ko no da la va da enti blas ndana en wo ko yo ta manu pon do ta before ko ken to e ogbar sa la so papa da long da do ta da to sakazi la ata da blenge ta amate sima ka da to la manu da na dolta sigi sakazi so mamu da do ta o da headline a o eto men be o eto men ya maybe bore zawa o da et lanar eni taranan do ta ba kama itu asik kata kala afai manu da do ta la radang pa alkra de la kawra yella tra be da ka by o ne si wan ramme o bozam ko da ta yel timi da it vaga wes man tanda do mena manen zo onda ko dana gen mal tanda do ma tampa ko bapon enwal bapon zo garu so bayila men ngala mbumi bayil ngala tutu e ba bona men da wala in case la dang ma bus so da bungan en wala tan amama na ziti la ka fine
na onda na be karana onda na die awo asibne da ko ken e bokana kata pagana mo pombe suyo no bona mma kazgor yidna to horo ma mbi ko pana katiji sohsi ngo on ken kala unda ban to si figa onan mal mana tem ye o onan mam na par bi atem ye mama ngen wala kama ka ken wala bo afa siri wo bo ale wo onan par tem kama ma di e me par to so bom bi la kama ma di ken sukur ko ngon jang dang palenga kama ken so on da edun wala la o ni bi la sultanda ko tawa si ka bi la ya tom la wala la bo me me zang dem dem lo asire ma ya zila la haram bimi ma erum men siem
ilbe ba ma ba this is what you wear kain kalam dai dia para man kisigira ma ken kamia wala me amaka easy fitne si number 1 is sit down lose be na lume ko ntanga wo nga use realize la ma dangerous work emetom say kitom from top wala kempa down to la men na kabata yela down la loose tontom kala lu na me ko emetom me don a subsit so la ni am kebge bok la kanye ma ndita so paga ka o tom dit amalam tom den hard work de katon den at easy ngala kala timbe kwa la tepak nget degree lawu anam so galamsey lensi ma la pm
3 days before, we lost a friend of mine, let's just say from 14 to 15. We were just there chatting, he just said, oh, he's getting in there to just cross-check how the level of the water. When he entered, he didn't return. By the time we realized, and he is dead. So there is not any bright future for the youth around the galamsey because it is something that they can easily die at once. Yeah, Fifi, my torture will pull. My torture will pull. So, okay. That's
that 10 years karata na start down on cigar. So 7 years ngala man start kwal bien 7 years ngala. Man I sit down. Dama lies ken wala ken pa tenga nye waste nye kugur muba abuso an first start na ganye ke muba abuso saruka o kura pe me ena ngapa pe kala dad ma dad te pa pe ka kugo edo ke noir ka be bir lur ha kala ba betenga la tunta po alo imi sigir ba tunta po alo so la da dangerous it will ngala sik to in papa suk mari binama aken imi tum papa suk ngala kala siki ino ba mbu wa nan tal ko izia ta pa ndanam hola ken patenga ma patenga me vaya valola panga me kan mala na ngamba badona ma min ken ko ma me dona me bu mi ma pana ensi so ndanye mi zan lola bu mi la nya kana dona ka darbi la dona ka darbi damba bana en lana ndang sika pa dol bon ko pa sika me sika ne so sika me.
There is not any bright future for the young people in the galamsey.
And especially when you see the the plight of these very children in many of such communities, not only in the northern regions of our country, but especially in the mining communities, but in other hard working environments, you should know that the states in which we put our children should be of concern. In my career, I've done a lot of work, especially for children that are involved in hazardous work in cocoa, and especially doing stories on fishing, etc. We have to put all that into perspective and say, as a country and as a continent, is that the right way to treat children? Well, one person who has been very instrumental with his organization in making sure that we put the issue of children involved in hazardous work at the front burner is James Kofi Annan. He is Executive Director for Challenging Heights International. And thanks for joining me. A very good friend of mine. Thanks for joining me. What do you make of the story? Of course, such stories are not new, but again exposes a country in which we're not willing to do well for our children.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a sad story, but this is not just peculiar to the mining situation. And even within the mining, this is just a tip of the iceberg. I mean, you go to Obuasi area, you go to Bugoso, you go to Takwa, all those mining areas. And in fact, there are areas that we have not been designated as mining areas, and yet now we are having this galamsey thing happening in many areas in the country. The situation of galamsey and child labor in the mining is becoming a phenomenon. If you compare it with fishing, now we have known the fishing for years. Since 1965, the fishing situation has been with us. If you look at the quarry industry, we have the same situation since years ago, so many decades ago. The cocoa industry. I mean, you were involved in the cocoa issue about a decade ago, and you know the situation there. But the mining, it's like, as we gave concessions to these big mining corporations and local people began to feel left out, they also began to assert their influence and take back things that they feel belong to them. And they did it in a manner that brought a lot of informality into the industry. And with the informality came child labor. And you can see these children have taken things upon themselves and they are doing their work themselves. And you ask yourself, how much are they paid? Some of them get, as little as 30 cedis in a day. Now, if you look at it critically, we have various areas where they have a lot of money. I mean, if you go to Bogosu, Takwa, young children as young as 17 years have their own cars through this artisanal mining. But in these areas, the new emerging areas, they have next to nothing, and yet they lose their education. You're talking about over 1.9 million children who are in child labor in Ghana, and many of them are in fishing and in mining sector. And it's a very sad story. Just count the number of children who die as a result of this. This death is just one of all the death that we know. And you can count every month you have pit caving in, you have children dying, and they use very dangerous chemicals like mercury and so on and so forth. I mean, it's a sad story.
Do we have, and especially you, organization involved in the charity work for these children, do we have statistics countrywide to give us an indication of a trend sectorally as children involved in some level of hazardous work?
Yeah, statistics is a very limited thing in this country. We know that there are about 1.9 million children engaged in child labor in the country. We know that we have about 100,000 people involved in slavery in the country. We know that in fishing, for instance, we have over 21,000 children who are caught up in slavery. So these bits and pieces of statistics are available, and we know that majority of these children who are involved in child labor are between the ages of 10 and 17, and so on and so forth. And majority of them are involved in agric and fishing, as the statistics will show. But unfortunately, we don't have certain specifics. For instance, we want to talk about how many girls are involved in this mining. And if you go to the mining areas, HIV is very high, especially among the girls. And prostitution, child prostitution is so high in those areas. We don't have figures to show how many girls are involved in prostitution, child prostitution,
as a result of being involved
in the mining sector.
Okay.
And these girls are there because they know that and they believe that the mining areas have money. And adults take advantage of these girls and use them for sexual purposes.
Wow. It's a very sad commentary, and especially when you have the experience of the industry, and I keep listening to you saying slavery. Why do we term the children who are involved in work, whether they are hazardous or not, to be slaves?
Well, we have various forms of the work that the children do. Some are classified under child labor, and that is the figure I gave you, 1.9 million who are involved in child labor. And child labor is basically a child who is working and sometimes goes to school, sometimes doesn't go to school, and may be protected to some extent. But we also have children who are trafficked into mining, into fishing, into domestic servitude. They are children who are moved from one community to another for the purposes of exploitation. So for instance, I go to my village, negotiate for a child, and pay money to the family, bring that child to the fishing area or mining area, and ask the child to work for me. Whatever income that comes as a result of the child work, I take it. And the child doesn't get anything apart from food and clothing. That is trafficking. Now, when you go beyond that and now abuse the child yourself and force the child to work for long hours, and sometimes you put a child in bonded labor, like you sign an agreement, you work for me for 2 years, that is slavery.
And all this is happening in our country?
Of course, that is happening. I mean, if you look at the slavery index, which was put out recently, in Ghana we have over 100,000 people in slavery, including adults, and it happening in this country. Let me give you a classical example. We have a situation in Lake Water where a whole family had been bonded. The family went for a loan, and the loan kept compounding interest. The interest, they didn't even know the amount involved, and they've kept working for the fisherman for so many years.
You mean generations?
Generations. And
So we could have a scenario, James, of where my children, as a result of money that was lended to me, would be working for somebody I'm indebted to.
Yes.
And then if they're not able to repay or fully pay, it continues.
They continue. So insofar as you have not been able to finish paying the loan, you continue working for me. And the trick here is that the one you are indebted to will continue to feed you and add the amount that he is using to feed you to the loan with interest. If you need anything, he will continue to give you and add it to it. And you don't even know how much the interest is. And in fact, because you are illiterate, you can't even calculate how much you are paying in your loan. And perpetually you remain indebted to that person. And this is in servitude.
Where are the law enforcement authorities?
Oh, well, that's a question that we've all asked. I mean, we see these things happening all around us. We see police, we have the law, the criminal code is there, we have the Children's Act, the Human Trafficking Act. All these are laws that prohibit slavery. If you look at our constitution, even our constitution make mention of slavery, to say that the laws of Ghana prohibit slavery, and yet we are here always talking about the situation not enforced. But you know why? Because you have an Human Trafficking Unit of Ghana Police Service that the whole country has one vehicle which is not working. How do you expect the unit to work? You know,
ideally they would have been doing some enforcement.
They would have to do the enforcement, but they don't have the logistics. Okay. You have a Human Trafficking Secretariat in the Gender Ministry that is under-resourced. They don't have what it takes to go out there and work. And we are asking government, what we are asking, if you remember, I wrote a letter, an open letter to the Honorable Minister Nano Yelita, and actually gave the fiscal letter also. And what we are asking is that put money in the budget for the ministry, specifically for this human trafficking issue. We are not asking you to give us money. We say give the minister money to work. Because if you don't do that, you know what is happening? The U.S. government releases a report, the Trafficking in Persons report, every year. And Ghana has been downgraded.
Access that report every year.
Exactly. And Ghana has been downgraded to Tier 2 watch list. What that means is that if we continue to be on that, then there are certain benefits that will not come to us. Especially if we slip to Tier 3, then you can be sure that a lot of credit, a lot of grants that we would receive from USAID, US State Department, and so on and so forth, will no longer come, including the much talked about Millennium Challenge account, which is over $400 million. And we're talking about a total of $600 million that we can't be denied if we do not do anything about this.
Because of our lack of commitment.
Exactly. Okay. And all we need, Roland, all we need is to put somewhat $5 million in the budget for this issue. And I believe
we can tackle it. Okay. Now, we know that the phenomenon has been on for decades. If this has been on for several generations, is it because it's steeped in communities' traditions and customs?
Well, we will attribute some of the situations to our tradition, where, for instance, my brother's son is my own son, and therefore it used to be that if I have a children, usually my first son can go and live with my senior brother, and those days he would treat my son as his own son. You know? Now it's no longer so. Now, I mean, you know, if you live in Accra, you are working in a bank or like in this air-conditioned situation, you want to take your children to school. You don't want your children to work with you as you used to be on the farm. Now, once you take your children to school and your children, some of them are young, you want somebody to take care of your home. You want somebody to take care of your children. So I will now go back to my community, ask my brother who is poor, who is illiterate, to give me his child to stay with me. My brother will be happy to do so because of the tradition. And my brother doesn't have enough to take care of his children, so he will gladly donate one to me, thinking that I'm going to send that child to school in the same way as I'm sending my child to school. But no, greed has set in. Now I want the betterment of my children, but at the expense of my brother's children. And so it's a beautiful culture that has gone wrong that we are now seeing. And because we don't have, we drove away our extended family system, and we didn't create the institution, the network to hold the implications of driving away the extended family system. And therefore, we have a large chunk of people who would have been taken care of by the extended family members, my grandma, my uncle, my auntie, my brother. And because they are no longer taking care of those vulnerable people, they are the ones we find on the street. They are the ones we find in the mining areas, in the fishing communities, as a domestic servitude. And in Ghana, remember, we didn't have a language called orphan. How long did we start having orphanages? If I lose my mother, I lose my father, there is an auntie in the house who will take care of me. But because we drove away that culture and we have become the nuclear family, and it's me and my children.
It's because our development pattern has moved on.
Has moved on, but we didn't, as a country, move on with it. You see, as the development pattern moved on, we should have developed the systems, the social welfare system that would take care of those who.
Because then there will be
exactly
baggages.
If you go to America, for instance. You will not have any state in America, and I have traveled to at least 25 states in America. No state in America will have children on the street. You have an adult on the street, but children, no. Because as soon as they see a child of a certain age on the street, they will pick that child, and the parent of that child would have the law to
a foster home
or an
orphanage.
An orphanage. So they have the welfare system that take care of things. And we have thrown ours away. And we are
with all the experiences, the challenging heights, which you have led for several years now, working in the industry of child protection, what would you say has gone wrong with the policies we have? Do we have them? If we don't have them, then how do we get them? If we have them, then why are we not implementing it?
We have good policies. I think that we are even over creating policies, that and the Children's Act is one of the beautiful acts we have in the country. The Domestic Violence Act is also there, Human Trafficking Act, all those things are there. In fact, in 2010, the late Professor Uno launched a national plan of action to tackle all forms of child labor. And that the plan was so comprehensive that if we were to deliver on it, we would have been in a very good position to say that we've made advancement in the child welfare system. But what has gone wrong is our lack of commitment. Look at the two main parties that we are talking about in this country. Look at their manifesto. I looked at it, and at another platform I said, I'm so disappointed. Everyone is looking at the populace generality. Now, things that will make sound bites, will make the news. They're not tackling the issue at the core of it. And they create the policies, and they recreate policies, and they don't implement. How much are we committing to our child welfare system? How much? The law says that you should have shelters. Every region should have one shelter, so that when a child is found wandering, can be taken to that shelter. We don't have them. In Accra, we have two shelters, the Usu shelter and then the Medina shelter, that have these Buster homes also combined. Even that, if you go and look at the state, it's so poor. We don't have shelters in any of the regions. Challenging Heights, we have two shelters, one in Central Region, one in the Branghafu region, that we use to rehabilitate our children. And no government agencies bring their children to our shelter. We are happy to partner with government agencies, but that is not the way to go. We should be the one to be coming to the government to say, we found this child, take the child, and care for that child. But if you are not resourcing those who are supposed to implement the law, if you are not giving the ministry enough money, and you expect them to deliver, then whatever promises that you are making in your manifestos, and I urge you to go and read the two manifestos, the MPP and NDC, whatever pledges that you are making will come to nothing.
I say.
And we continue to reinvent the
That speaks volumes of the commitment of the state to the subject of child welfare.
Yes, because also they don't have the commitment. You and I are failing to ask the right questions. We should ask them the right questions.
That's why we're here creating the platform, so that we ask the needed questions.
Well, thank you for providing the platform.
And one person who asks the critical questions in the new documentary he's produced, Tender Miners, is Justice Beidou. And Justice Beidou is joining me on Skype. A very good morning to Justice Beidou. Now, particularly, what may have motivated you to have done the story?
Good morning, Raymond, and good morning to the viewers who are following the discussion this morning, and good morning to Mr. Annan. I think that obviously the issue of children in mines in Ghana is not a new issue. It is something that has been with us for long. But as we are saying, it's not something that we really paid attention to it the way we should. One of the things that you asked Mr. Annan was whether there are any statistics to support how many children, for example, are in illegal mines in Ghana. And I'll tell you that we haven't got anything like that. And the way these mines happen, so for example, in the mines where we worked this story on in the Talensi area, most of them are running illegally. And if you're running something illegally, you don't want to bring attention to yourself. And so most of these deaths go unreported. Nobody would want to raise an alarm about it, because then what you do is you are calling in the police or the security agencies to come close your work down. And so it makes it really difficult to, first of all, even know how many children we are talking about, and how the extent to which this is affecting them, and obviously educational issues and all of that. And so yeah, it's a real problem, and that is what has drawn us to work on this extensive documentary, exposing the issue and obviously putting a human interest to it, and telling the story of how young people are dying, and not just suffering, not just staying out of school, dying, losing innocent lives, because they are, in many cases, children have become breadwinners for their families, and that is the reason why many children are now in illegal and hazardous jobs as the galamsey Roland.
Well, just be on the line there, and James, what he's saying brings the subject close to home, especially for many of these young children dying. That speaks volumes.
Yes, it's unfortunate that we should allow our children to become breadwinners. I think a few years ago, about 3 years ago, Joy FM did a documentary titled Infant Breadwinners, which is a radio documentary similar to this one. And in that documentary, they did come to interview me, and I said that there are a lot of deaths that are preventable, a lot of deaths that are needless, but I think that we looked on with impunity, and I'm using that word in a certain context. We look on with impunity as we see our children just dissipate out of our hands. We see our children just dying, and we are happy to do a piecemeal approach, bit and piece of things, and still get our children dying. Look, and Justice made a very important point that this death that you are seeing in the mining sector that has been reported is just like a micro part of the macro, very small aspect of how many children are dying. If you go to the fishing communities, for instance, let me give you just an example. When I was trafficked as a child, we were 6 who were trafficked together. 3 of us survived. The other 3 did not survive. All the other 3 that did not survive died as a result of diving under the lake to remove trap net. You send a child under the lake to remove trap net without any breathing aid, with nothing, and it goes down naked to remove the trap net. You expect this child to survive. A child of 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. In the same way, you allow a child of, say, 8 years. I mean, in the documentary, you can see that somebody even started at the age of 10. Allow a child of 8 years to go under the pit. And you know this rock, the different types of rocks, some of them just can easily cave in and break and so on and so forth. That child is going there thinking that everything is safe. He goes there, and then once there's a cave, how to even come up is another thing. And so you see that we are just looking on helplessly, seeing our children just dying.
Now, Justice, do we have scenarios where in which many of these children perhaps were trafficked from one community to the other or one region to the other, and if they were, was it forcibly or just because by dint of circumstances?
That is the case, Roland. In fact, the point, the exact place where these mines are not actual towns. They are towns that have come to establish because of the mining. And many of these children have had to move from bigger towns like Bolgatanga, Navrongo, Sandema, Tamale, and even as far, I'm told, children have come all the way from Kumasi to live there. And because of the gold and the booming activity, many have had to settle there and build temporary accommodations. And so some of these children, you ask whether they've been trafficked there, brought there, come down their own. I think is a mix of all of it, because some of them, like this boy who just died, he lives in a relatively near community. He used to be in school and had to leave school because, according to his friends, most of them haven't got support when they are in school. And so if you are in school and you don't even have food to eat before you go to school in the morning, and yet you see your age mates who are going under the pit and coming out and having to show off about 200 cedis every day, there's a temptation to then leave school and then go and join them. And so in this case, that's what happened to him. He got to the point of even having to give money to his mother, his younger siblings at home every time he came home.
Now, particularly, Justice, isn't that the parent, once we're talking about characters or children who have living parents, is it that the parents were ignorant, one, and two, if they live in communities, don't they have traditional heads, etc.? And then three, why aren't authorities perhaps also very much noticing this very atrocious activity, so to speak?
I think it's a very difficult question, but I think that it's the result of the way our society is generally structured. I mean, Mr. Annan made mention of, for example, how on serious we have taken the issue of child protection and child rights generally in this country. In the area where these activities go on, there's police activity. There are bigger mines that are run by Chinese nationals. In the first place, that is wrong, because artisanal mining by law is supposed to be for Ghanaians. But then you find Chinese people who are in big time mining in the area, and these mines are guided by the Ghana Police Service. And in broad daylight, you find children all over the place doing all sorts of things. And the point is, nobody cares, Roland. Nobody cares. Wow. And I think for me, the bigger issue from this documentary is that it's not just that children are dying, but then the children are falling out of school. In the Upper East region alone, where we shot this documentary from, as much as 20,000 children of school-going age are not in the classroom, and most of them are in mines like these, and basically dying. And so the question you ask yourself is, if the children are not in school, how then are we going to break the poverty cycle, which has engulfed regions like the Upper East region, which is second on the log of poorest regions in Ghana?
Well,
and so,
Thank you very much for your insightful comment, especially adding a lot more meat, so to speak, just in quotes, to what you've already done. But we know that you are very much committed to this. Where else would you be going next?
Yeah, so this is a part of a documentary series that we are doing to show the link between poverty and politics.
Okay.
We are just a month to elections. We want to shine the light on the issues that are everyday issues that should inform this election and beyond the platform talk and then the campaign talk. We want to ask the politicians what, for example, they are doing about the fact that more than 3 million Ghanaian children are now trapped in poverty, and what real measures they have to address these issues. So yes, we Tender Miners goes on air tonight at 6:30 p.m. We have other documentaries that is highlighting issues of youth unemployment and all of that from New Takrade, which we are working on, and is soon to come and join us as well in about in a couple of weeks. And so yes, we would update our viewers as and when we have any of them ready. Roland.
Well, thank you very much, Justice Beidu. Justice Beidu put together that very documentary. It's titled Tender Miners. Will be premiering today, 6:30 this evening on the channel, Join His channel on Multi TV. But very chilling account.
Yeah.
But it's not as if I haven't heard them before. I've heard them severally over the years. But the bad thing is, it's we just don't seem to be doing anything about them.
Yes, the fact that you keep hearing it is very disappointing,
yes,
isn't it?
It's disappointing.
Very disappointing. I wish that we don't have to be recounting this situation all the time. I honestly, I feel very emotional about the situation. We've done a lot of work, and I wish that it was not so. Now, Justice raised some very important questions, which it's worthy of consideration. You know, this situation is getting a lot of children out of school, and yet we are saying that the children are our future. So what kind of future are we creating? You know, so there's a contradiction there, that if we say the children are our future and we are allowing our children to drop out of school, and in most of these cases, if you read the records, a child finishes JHS, is likely to finish JHS. You think that he has graduated. And so, you know, once you finish JHS, his next work is this mining thing.
Yeah.
And we are, you know, we are looking on, and you know,
and we're depriving them of the future.
We are depriving them of future.
Because right now they may be getting monies, but it will not be enough for their livelihood.
No, my brother, no. You see, let me tell you, just a quick one. The politicians, as we are in elections, are using the resource of this for them, their own benefit. So they are dropped out, they are no longer getting any money, and so they go for them, you give them 50 Ghana cedis, and they are behind you, causing mayhem for you. And it's unfortunate.
Okay, so we're opening the phone lines, and very soon the director will put the numbers on the line for you, on the screens for you, so you'll get to know what numbers we have. You can call us if you know our regular numbers. Please make sure that you call us also. We would want to hear from you. If you live in a mining area or in an area, whether it's a fishing or cocoa growing area, and you witness that we have a lot more children involved in hazardous work, tell us your experiences too. If you have been through too, and you know that these very practices still continue, how do you feel about this very phenomenon? And we would want to hear from you. I think that would be the best way to put it. But as we wait for the calls, and the number is 030221169 or 2. Again, 030221169 or 2. And but how do we get the right people involved? If we know that, let's say, we have the rich, those who are supposed to be the elite, we have foreigners coming into the mining sector with lots of money, which would seem irresistible to the community elders. Who should then be guarding the unguarded?
Well, I would go back to the law. We should look at the law and implement it well. I believe that enforcement. I think that the way to go is not to arrest the children. If you do that, you create a worse situation. And sometimes the police will just, like this news has come, the police might even walk in there and do a soup. and they think that once you have done a sweep, the problem has been solved. No, you do a sweep, the next moment the children are right back there. So that is not, for me, that's not the solution. The solution is to tackle the root causes. Look at poverty situations of the families of these children. Once you have reduced poverty in the families of these children, you prevent them from moving from their hometowns, moving from their communities to those mining areas. So you address that. Address the issues of inequality in education. Access to education is very important. If I'm living in a community where I have a primary school, and when I finish the primary school, I have to move to another community to access JHS. Then once I finish my primary school, I feel that I've completed school. And there are so many communities like that. And a child of, let's say, 8 years finishes class 6 and feels that he has finished schooling, and he will not go to the next community because he has to work for about 3 hours to access JHS. He can't go. You know, and so these are some of the inequalities that are preventing children from accessing education. And also the quality. You have a school where you have just about 5 teachers in the school. One of the teachers lost the uncle's mother, and so decided to go for the funeral. He spends about a week or 2 for the funeral. He's not coming to school. The children feel that I'll go to school and there's no teacher to teach me, so why should I go to school? The next alternative is to turn to this mining, and then he'll get something at least.
Okay, we have on the line Dr. David Poaloa of Advocacy, and we want to ask you, especially since you're also with a charity up north, is the phenomenon very rife in many of the communities in the northern regions, so to speak, or in the north? I think, to put it a lot more rightly. And in which communities can you locate some of these children who are working in hazardous situations?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and a very good morning to your viewers. You want to indicate that the name is Mr. David Poaloa. I'm not a doctor. Just want to put that on record.
All right.
We are based in the Upper East region. Advocacy is located in the Upper East region, where we have one of the districts or communities that is noted nationwide for having lots of child labor activities. And so over the years, we've been working towards trying to reduce this trend. In 2006, the District Assembly, in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, conducted a child labor administrative census. At the time, we had 645 children who were actually actively involved in worst forms of child labor. However, 7 years after that survey was conducted, Advocacy, again in collaboration with the local assembly, decided to conduct a similar survey to attend the situation. Yeah. And when we conducted that survey, it came to our attention that actually there were very frightening revelations, because we realized the number has more or less quadrupled.
Going bad there. We have on the line Hassan from Nima. A very good morning to you, Hassan. Your comments on the subject of children working in very dangerous situations. Okay. Mr. Poaloa?
Yeah.
Now, particularly when we know that for the focus on children working in such conditions could be dangerous, and they are being deprived of education, that doesn't bode well for the communities. What really are the communities and their leaders doing about the situation?
Well, it's true. It does not really order well for the community, for a region, and for a country as a whole, because we are losing a lot of our future professionals through worst forms of child labor. And so over the years, in collaboration with the District Assembly and other partners, Advocacy has been trying to raise awareness on the dangers of worst forms of child labor, because we believe that the responsibility in stopping these children from getting engaged in this exercise lies with the parents, first and foremost. And so we'll be trying to engage parents on the harmful effects of this exercise. But from our recent survey, it doesn't look like this is going down well with parents, because the numbers generally has increased. And the really frightening development is that more girls are even getting involved in waste forms of child labor than boys now. And this clearly is not a good picture for any community to want to gloss over. And so our awareness raising activities is going to continue, but there's going to be a change, a slightly different approach to awareness raising, because we realize that it's not just about raising awareness. We need to do a much more of participatory assessment of the issue, involving the parents, stakeholders such as the chiefs, assembly members, and then the groups that we have set up in communities that we refer to as child labor committee and the child labor committee members. We have realized that usually when we go with the community with information package to deliver to them, it does not look like this things well. We have to rather engage the parents to discuss. We should be able to raise topics that will generate dialogue and discussions among parents and community members, so that they are able to appreciate the harmful effects, because they have been witness to the fact that many children have been trapped in underground mining shafts. Most children have actually contracted illness as a result of the exposure. They are also aware of the fact that most very brilliant kids have dropped out of school as a result of mining. They know all of these things. What we can do is to now get them to engage on this occurrence that they have recorded, that the community is aware of that, myself and you, and for them to come out with the solutions that they will want to take to be able to deal with this situation. I think that this is the way for us to go, and we need to move away from literally raising awareness and telling parents that child labor is not good, whereas they are the ones who are actually feeling the pain of the negative effects of child labor. And so we need to get them to reflect and to get them to take the right decisions, so that together we can change this trend.
Very much. David Paula is the Executive Director for Africates. It's an NGO, a charity based in the Upper East region, working to make sure that they improve the lot of welfare of children involved in all kind of dangerous activities. So it speaks volumes, especially we're even having young ladies or girls even involved. And some of them, not that they are necessarily from the West of background, but because they find that as an incentive to go and do what they do. How could a child so young think that, well, it's more profitable for me to be mining today than my education for tomorrow?
Well, I think it also has to do with how we have created the system, and I'll come back to the same issue of the system, how we have made education unattractive to them, how the human quest to survive. I mean, a couple of months ago, a man sold his 4 children for 500 Ghana cedis, and when you went into the situation, it is because he feels that the children being in school is of no use, because he's seen a lot of people who have gone to school and come back to the community and are doing nothing, and therefore why should he allow his children to go to school when he could get money off of them? You know, so that kind of human quest to survive, and also lack of role model. Probably we are getting to the end of our conversation. I will say quickly that, Challenging Heights, we've been in existence for the last 11 years officially, and so far we've rescued about 1,500 children from trafficking. We supported many more thousands of children. We have our own rehabilitation center. We don't want to continue working in this issue in the next decade, after the next decade. We want to make a statement to say that we need to end this thing.
Okay,
we
have Wanzam on the line, and again we've opened the phone lines. They are up there, 0302211691 or 2. And Wanzam, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Tamale in the northern region.
Have you been following our conversation?
Yes.
And what do you make of the revelation in the Tender Miners documentary by Justice Beidou, and what David Paula of Africates and also James Kofiana has been telling us about children involved in work?
Yes, in fact, I have just some small contribution to make about it. We was looking at this in the land in the Upper West region. But the farming community, the land is not even enough for the farmers. And now these miners are destroying the land. So if they destroy the land, and then the little land that you have to farm for yourself and your children has been destroyed, what do you think your children can do? So what I would suggest is that the point tackling is on the miners, those who are employing the miners into the mines. If we don't tackle that one, but if the employer is not there, there's no employee. So the miners are destroying the land, and the farmers can no longer farm. So therefore, their children are pushed into the mines.
Well,
so this is what I have to contribute. So maybe the authority will have to tackle that point.
Great contribution from Wanzam. He's calling from Tamale.
And you see, this contribution reminds me of something. There's a policy disconnection. There's a lack of coordination in addressing these issues.
Okay.
Now you see that if the gender ministry want to address child labor, what they have to do is to pick the children, put them in safe havens. But that is not the solution. You have to coordinate with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to make sure that you are addressing those who bring illegal equipment into the country to do, like the Chinese situation that Justice talked about. They are mining illegally, and they sit back and employ local people, and they get all these children involved, and the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources must address that in collaboration with the Ministry of Gender. You have Ministry of Agriculture that must also come in because they are destroying their lands.
David from WA. David, your comments on children involved in dangerous work and following that very documentary by Justice Beidu from the Upper East region. David.
Yes.
Please, David, your comments on the subject of discussion, please.
Yeah, my contribution has to do with the issue of the role models then. We are saying that children drop out of school. Many of these communities, when you get there, they only look up to their role models. And then here's the case that even their siblings that they see complete school and then they come and sit back. In fact, when you go to some of those communities, they think that those who have gone to school and they are back in the house, they have possibly failed or they couldn't just make it. And so once it's like that, it creates a spirit of hopelessness. They are not motivated to even send their children to school. And so it's not that parents are not aware. Parents are aware, and even parents will rather encourage their children to go and then engage in this tender mining. And I think that if we really want to fight this, it must be a national issue. That our politicians or leaders must take deliberate steps to implement policies that will fight against it.
Well, David,
but if it is just the knee-jerk action when the thing comes.
David, are you disappointed that for several years or over the last decade, governments have not been very much committed to this?
Certainly. This it's not only in the Upper East. I can't just.
It's countrywide, actually. It's not a matter. It's not as if we're focusing on the Upper East region. It's a countrywide thing. I've been involved in child labor activities for some time, so I know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you come to the Upper West, it will baffle you to realize that now almost every community, you have some of those things coming up. And you get there and people who are supposed to be in school, they are the people leading everything that is working out there. I mean, and if you go and tell them, sometimes you sit some of the people who are within your community, you sit them down, tell them ABC. And maybe they just think within their side that you went to school, what exactly have you been able to do? And you cannot stop them because you can't provide for them to eat. So these are the issues. It is a national issue that must be tackled head on. Okay. Otherwise, our civilians will continue to engage in these hazardous activities, which would destroy the environment and in any case will not give the Hindus a job, because this one they will do it. The next time they are looking for a different place to go. So the question is, when they finish with their surrounding environment, where do they go next?
All right, great point you make there. And then we have Lukman. Lukman, last caller from Tamale. Lukman. Hello, Lukman. Well, I seem to have lost Lukman there, but that way for all the calls on the subject. But James Kofi Annan, thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah, thanks.
We've had a great discussion. We hope that it can influence a lot more people who perhaps are watching us to do something about it. Immediately, the municipal or the local government heads in those areas, because many of the miners take permission from them before they go and mine those concessions.
But would you do me a favor? Could you ask the government to put $5 million, just $5 million in the budget to address child labor next year.
You just did. You're even a key stakeholder in the sector than I am. So we'll see how that goes. James Kofi Annan is Executive Director for Challenging Heights International. He came into the studio based on the premise that Justice Baidu, who is going to have his documentary being premiered this evening on Joy News. The title of the documentary is Tender Minors. It talks about, in the Upper East region, young children who are involved in illegal mining. Many of them tend to lose their lives in the process, get sick, and more importantly, are not in school. It's as critical as it can be for a country's development. But we also had on the line David Poila. And David Poila is Executive Director for Africa. It's debates in the Upper East region. And we also had your calls. Thanks for the conversation.